I used to book a lot of shows with like the Planet X PC kids, and I mean I actually have a lot of beliefs pretty similar to it. I just also believe in having a lot of terrible jokes occur at the absolute wrong time.
Right.
One band here at Sukin said it was like taking a PC vacation. Like, come here, because the majority of people we were so like-minded. We all just, I guess we got to the point where we took for granted that racism and sexism and homophobia really exist.
Right.
Like, at least with my group of friends, that we never crossed our minds that these are real issues, because for us it's so outlandish that people really still have these thoughts or these ideals that, you know, could be so shitty for these small groups of people, or not even small, I guess large groups of people too. And so it got to a point where it was just obnoxious. It still is obnoxious to this day, but I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't change, because I think it points to something in that, like, we're so accepting that it just kind of hopefully becomes a thing that you don't think of.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, just the wrong joke at the right time is pretty funny sometimes.
Right.
It's nearly impossible to sum up the sense of humor and sense of community that exist in Binghamton without being here and experiencing it firsthand over a long period of time. That being said, it should be understood that we don't hate everyone else, we just don't really care if you like us. When I first started this documentary, I had the goal of giving outsiders a look into the world that is the Binghamton scene in an attempt to convey that there currently is and has been a strong underground community for nearly 30 years now. What I've realized is that it's nearly impossible to try to sum up something that you either get or you don't. However, hopefully, I've shed some sort of light on what may be happening in your own hometown that you're completely unaware of. I can only talk about what I've seen, and that's why I focus on the last 10 years. So to end the documentary, I asked everyone involved to think about where they think the scene may be in another 10 years.
In 10 years, where do you see yourself? Where do you see the scene as a whole? What do you think may happen in another 10 years from now?
Wow. That's the part about the scene that I don't like, is now we're running out of venues.
Yeah. You think there's going to be like a resurgence, which has happened around here before? Like you said, like from my understanding, the 80s was pretty good.
The 80s was crazy.
Right, and then the 90s sort of...
The 80s, a cover band would have hundreds of people.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, it wouldn't be anything to see 120, 130. I mean, granted, we do that, but that's in an original band. You've got 5 bands there, 4 or 5 bands there. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, nowadays it's hard to find one band where a cover band does 3 sets. To have that many people there. Where back in the day, a lot of the bands were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of places to play anymore.
10 years from now, where do you guys think the scene will be? What will it be like?
Dead.
Over.
Gone. No, I mean, I think it's honestly going to be pretty similar to what it is today. I mean, you can never predict what type of technology is going to, be created and, change, music scenes and music in general. I mean, it's absolutely impossible to predict. I mean, if I'm to sit here and try to predict, I'd be a complete idiot, I mean, I really don't know what's going to happen. I just hope that whatever happens, it's still all about the music. Right. And it's still all about the human aspect, and it's still all about community, and that the artistic and human aspect of it doesn't die. That's just all I hope, and I just hope that it doesn't become so digitalized to the point where kids lose that human aspect. So that's what I hope. I mean, you can never predict the future. I'm not Nostradamus, dude.
There's really no telling. It really depends on what kind of music's popular then. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at maybe not 20, maybe like 30 years ago, back before 35 years ago, shit like that, like back when my dad was playing in bands, that kind of music scene was, the DJ hadn't really made its presence yet. Right. That was like pre-disco, pre-that bullshit, and before punk came out, it was like one band playing, 4 one-hour sets a night. And that's the one band playing the entire night, playing mostly covers, some originals, and you can make a lot of money playing in a band that way. And you would book the shows and book them right with the wasn't really promoters as much as there were just bar owners, and we think we're going to play here. This is our cut of the door, and you can see where it's gone from that to like a totally different environment. You know, shows are always going to have like 3 or 4 bands, 5 bands. So I mean, it's no telling where, like, just depending on what kind of music's popular and what people want to listen to, what shows are going to be like. And it depends on what kind of venues we have around here too. You know, if there's a lot of all ages venues are going to have usually like more cutting edge bands because it's going to be a younger band, but at the same time a lot of those bands are going to be way shittier too. Yeah. The bar scene is always going to have like, you know, you're always going to have like your shitty bar bands. I mean, there's guys who around here who have been doing it who were doing it 10 years ago, you know, and doing it even longer than then. And they're still doing it, and they're doing their like kind of shitty bar rock scene. You know what I mean? Some of these bands are still at it, and there's always going to be that. You know what I mean? Like until people want to stop seeing live music, there's going to be a scene. Yeah. It just sucks. At some point, live music is probably going to have very little to do with actual music.
Like live musicians.
Yeah, it's going to be like maybe a DJ and like that kind of shit. DJing.
In 10 years from now, what do you think the Binghamton scene will be like?
It's really hard to say. Honestly, I think the mainstream does like reflect on the scene a lot, and you never know what's gonna happen. Like, you know, 10 years ago, bands like Green Day, Blink-182, you know, they were you know, big in the mainstream, and there were a lot of underground pop punk bands. And then, like I said, in 2003, you know, Metallica, Saint Anger came out, and, you know, all these metal bands started showing up at shows. And 2005, you know, the whole emo thing got big, and more emo bands around here. Like, it sucks, but the mainstream does reflect the local scenes a lot. And really, it's hard to say what's going to happen in 10 years, because at this point, it's, you know, hard to find like a new genre. Like, just like, you know, the 50s country and rock and roll were coming up, you know, and 70s, you know, punk came out of that, and like 90s grunge, and, you know, it's just like, you never know if anything else new is going to come up. So it's hard to say really what the scene is going to be like in 10 years.
Where do you think the scene's going to go in 10 years? What do you think it'll be like?
I can't even guess. The music seems to have gotten really extreme on either end of it, where most of the metal now, there's not really melodic metal. It's gotten really technical and grindy, and the pop or indie stuff, I guess, has gotten so mellow. Right. There's no just straight middle of the road rock and roll that's appealing enough to anybody, or like in metal, like where, you know, sure, the hairband stuff sucked, but there was also some decent songwriting in that also, and something to be, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to see it get back to a time where it sounds like Use Your Illusions 1.
To say that I hate Dan Rickenbach. I hate him with a fury that burns with the intensity of the fires in hell. I hate Dan Rickenbach.